How much is Facebook to blame for the outcome of the election? This is a question that Jay Hathaway of the Daily Dot asked, as well as a number of other media publications have asked this very question. And this article is titled, "Why Can't Facebook Admit That Its Fake News Problem Changed the Election?" So when asked, Mark Zuckerberg, when he was doing a live stream at the technology conference, he says, quote, "Personally, I think the idea of fake news on Facebook influenced the election in any way is a pretty crazy idea." Now, the article mentioned a number of different aspects. I suggest that you read it. We'll include the link. But they also mentioned the Pew Research study. This was huge, like a couple months ago. A lot of people were surprised that when it was published in May, that 62% of Americans got their news on social media, and 66% of Facebook users say they use that site as a news source for them. So in this article, they talk about how a number of these different headlines, these slanderous headlines, and they said more so are more outlandish when it comes to Hillary Clinton and the left versus the right. That's according to this article. That even though it plays on both sides, that a lot of the people, they'll be viewed millions of times, shared thousands of times, and you even brought up that statistic that oftentimes the people don't even read the actual article; they just see it. It hits home because it agrees with whatever side they're on, and then they share it. And this article is hoping that Facebook and that Mark Zuckerberg will at least admit it and try and figure out how to somehow police, these or block, I guess, a number of these fake news sites. So interested to hear your thoughts. 5 words or less.
What? The internet isn't true?
They admit it.
It's all fake news, bro.
Facebook now Fistbook. I can't even go on it.
Fistbook?
Like you've never heard that term? It's a
What?
term if
You go to fistbook.com right now.
Yeah, it's
You're
definitely.
Just saying,
thinking of it the wrong way.
make sure all your parental controls
You're
are
thinking
off.
of it the wrong way. A number of people have used the term. I've seen it in a number of different, probably fake headlines.
news articles?
No, more so people writing. I've seen a number of people that I know on Facebook saying that Facebook has become Fistbook, meaning everybody has their fist up right now. Everybody feels like that they have a political agenda to push.
It feels like there's a fist up
And
your butt when you're on it.
It bugs right now. Facebook is so divisive right now. There's so much vitriol on both sides, and so people have labeled it Fistbook, and I get that. You mentioned in your 5 words that they do admit it.
They do admit it.
Facebook admits it.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg can go out and talk, deliver a keynote speech saying it's absolutely preposterous that Facebook has a fake news problem. Well, or the Facebook's fake news problem has contributed to the election, but they are very well aware at Facebook that this problem exists, and I know this for a number of different reasons. 1, because I have close friends that work there, and I talk to them about this all the time. 2, because they've publicly admitted it and have taken steps against it throughout this year. If you guys were following
What were the
Facebook
steps against
closely,
it?
okay, first of all, we covered it. They started this new thing where they were going to curb back on fake titles. Like, one of the biggest problems is that, just like you mentioned, people don't read the articles themselves, they just see a title. And if it's clickbaity, Facebook is attempting to curb that back, making sure that not as many people see it. So that's one of the things that they came out against. And then another thing is fake news articles. They are very much against it. It means that they know that it exists. It's a problem that exists within the Facebook ecosystem. And they're also saying that they're going to curb back on fake news websites that deliver
And then
false
even when you
news.
Snopes someone, which can be so satisfying, then they'll write back and be like, yeah, but Snopes is biased too.
Here's
and it's
the
just
thing.
like, there's so much, it's hard to find the truth out there.
You should watch the Techonomy interview that Mark Zuckerberg did. And he said, and he reveals his fundamental misunderstanding of the news problem. He says, listen, it used to be there were only 4 newspapers out there, and that was the only opinion you could get. You'd read those 4 newspapers and that's it. We're helping because we're giving millions of opinions. And whether people want to admit this or not, 90% of your friend group probably agrees with you and 10% doesn't. We're giving you those 10% of the people. His fundamental misunderstanding of what's wrong with news today is that he kind of implies that that newspapers are slanted. And the difference is, like, the newspaper has a discrete section called editorial and op-ed. The editorial is the opinions of the newspaper. The op-ed is people they invite to the newspaper to write opinions, and then they publish them there. Everything else, ostensibly throughout history, is the work of journalists. Journalists are dead and dying.
Yeah.
There is no longer any incentive from newspapers, anything that you would conventionally think was protected by the sanctity of journalism. The clickbait that you were talking
or American
about.
consumers too, though, at the same time, or international consumers. Like
Yeah, but
they're
it's-
not looking for unbiased resources.
That's
If
the
that
thing,
was the
though.
case,
That's
the thing. People don't want, guaranteed. Look at Facebook. Look at the last couple weeks. People don't want to hear another side. I can be guilty of that too. You click and share an article or a headline that is true within your beliefs, and then people try and argue it, and then you don't even listen to that person's argument, and it comes this back and forth. I don't even know if you shared something that was open and honest and would shed light to the other side, whatever that side would be, if that person would even be open enough to listening.
Yeah, and I really agree with what you're saying about how journalists are dying, and it's because we've found so much comfort in being in an echo chamber that affirms what we already believe, and so we're not very interested in the truth anymore, because the truth might not be what we want to hear,
Okay,
whereas
first of all,
we can
it's
listen
not-
to what.
No, people aren't lying though.
People just want to be right.
People are lying.
But
I mean, people are lying.
People are
but-
absolutely lying. No one's doing no one's doing journalism anymore. Everyone's doing fucking research.
Yep.
And you're researching articles which are written by .coms and have a byline with a person's name, but you're researching blogs. That's it. It's people who take facts and move them into what they already believe. And that's the problem. And never before have we had access to so much information with so little idea of what the fuck is going on. And you need look no further than the disparity between what people thought was going to happen on election day and what actually happened on election day.
Yeah. Haas?
I can't help but feel directly vilified in this instance because I do that research all the time.
This whole building.
But this is what we do. But look,
We
listen.
get fucking articles, and I
No, but there's
the other
a way
day
to do it. There's
I
a methodology. Like it's not like it's not like I'm going to fucking endingthefed.com and being like, oh, this person is reaffirming my beliefs, so I'm just going to quote that article. No,
but I just mean, like, if we're
there's a way
talking
to
there's
do
no
it.
place. There's no place to go
And
where
there's-
all
you
the
can still go to
Washington Post
Scholar.
articles everyone read are opinion pieces this go around. They weren't articles they weren't like just straight up news articles.
I know, but when you look, there's a way to go about it, and there's two sides to every statement, right? So you can have the personal responsibility when you're doing this research by looking at both sides of the argument and mentioning both sides. It's still the same
That's a
facts.
good
In
point.
the end of the day, they're still deriving their opinions from facts. Like
But
when you
what
look
was?
at
But Haas, the central problem with the election specifically is the facts were all fucking wrong.
That's true.
Because no one gave a shit.
But there's a difference between, like, not all facts are wrong. When you look at Washington Post, and by the way, I criticize them very frequently, but when you look at their police crime, or when they look at their crime statistics, and when they look at like the police brutality statistics, those are important pieces of work that they're doing. So is The Guardian, for example. The Guardian is super biased. They're very progressive, but in the end of the day, they do still do important work, and we have to shed light on that. We have to, like, there's a place.
You can't
where
base your
opinion-
opinion
My
on
point is
one
there's
article,
no-
though.
there's
You cannot base
nowhere.
your opinion on one article.
There's
Always look
nowhere
at
to
multiple
go.
articles.
Yeah,
There's
but
nowhere to go.
And the
so everyone's looking for the truth. But the definition of the truth has changed because people come to the Young Turks if they want one truth. They go to the Red State if they want another truth. And they're fine living that way. And you live in your bubble until election day, and suddenly we found out what the truth was.
Look, but I mean, you're using the word truth. It doesn't make sense. Like, if everything is biased, and there's no market for unbiased, just straightforward journalism, and if no one's reading it, it falls on deaf ears, then why? It makes no sense for people to go out there. At least, if I can bring people in and shed light on what the other side is thinking, then I feel like I've done
but
my
Yeah,
that's-
but you
job.
do a
it's
really
not your-
good
the
job.
truth
But Haas
is-
does a real. I have to back Haas up on this because you do a really good job on that. Every time that I've worked with you, whether on the main show or when I watch your other pieces, you always do a good job of presenting both sides. And oftentimes, you will take the unpopular opinion. You're not afraid to go against the grain if that's what fits within what you believe in. And I appreciate that because a lot of times people fall into what they think or how they think they should answer based on what that audience is or who they're working for.
But
and I
what I'm-
appreciate that you stick to your true self.
What I'm getting at is it's not Haas's responsibility to do anything other than what you're doing. I don't think you should be doing anything.
But he felt for some reason personally attacked.
Whatever
I don't think
reason.
you said anything to make him feel that way, but you said you felt vilified.
It's true. But it's true about, I mean, there are certain dynamics that lead media organizations to do good things or bad things, different things, similar things to each other. Now, one of those dynamics is that, you know, the major media organizations are owned by 6 companies. And those 6 companies might have like, look at Hearst Media. Hearst Media has Seriously.TV and Red, whatever, what's the other one? They have 2 video media outlets. They have one that's left-leaning and one that's right-leaning, and then they just say, go at it and make your videos. But what it comes back to is the legal structure for Facebook going forward, because people like Haas exist, people like me exist, people like us exist, Seriously.TV, Red Opinion, or whatever the fuck their thing is.
Breitbart, all of the above.
Breitbart, they all exist. The thing is the editorial board of the Washington Post gets in trouble if they publish something wrong.
Right.
Law states that if Facebook just creates a forum that retweets, or Facebook reposts something that ends up having been wrong, Facebook is not responsible for that. That's what the law says. The law needs to change. And there's lawsuits out there to change it. Where Facebook, I'm sorry, yes, you want, and I get it, those people are technological solution providers. And those people are like, listen, we just want to make sure that we set up an area where people get more information. But the landscape has changed. We've heard stats that like 66% of people get their news from social media. So now it's your responsibility. And yes, they've tried. And proof that their technological solutions don't necessarily work is that they have 1,000 people sitting there and clicking. Individuals going like, this was useful for me, this was not. Because their technology is short of it. And Mark Zuckerberg admits it. He's like, this is a work in progress. Fine. And I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg is doing anything to like nefariously stop the progress of news as it exists. But he needs to understand the problem that exists is you're now the Times editorial board. Because you're where people get their articles.
All right, please get in on this conversation. Oh, yes, great.
I had a great time sitting here. Back to you, Sam.
Okay, please, we want to know what you have to say, so let us have it. You know, share your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time on Pop Sugar.